The loneliness wasn't about being physically alone, it was about the echo that followed you into every room. You were surrounded, but a part of you was always unaccompanied. There was a quiet, invisible space between you and everything else. You learned, not by choice, to host yourself. Certain emotions had nowhere to go. Questions could hang in the air, untouched. Being truly seen felt like a hope you quietly retired. So, you adjusted. You don't recall the decision, only the slow turn inward. While others expanded into the world, you built a world within. You figured out how to soothe your own storms, how to sit with uncertainty without calling for help. People call you they don't know that self-sufficiency was your first language. This creates a specific way of moving through life, a gentle, persistent feeling of being out of phase. You are here, but not entirely met. You became fluent in the unspoken. You learned to read the room's temperature, the shift in a voice, the space between sentences. You notice withdrawals before they're announced. You don't react. You archive the moment. You became an expert archivist of feelings that had no audience, of thoughts that seemed too complex to voice. You held them until they made sense, or until they dissolved. In some ways, you grew up too soon, not because you had to care for others, but because you had to care for the child inside you. You stopped expecting a comforting hand, so you fashioned your own comfort. That self-reliance, though, has a shadow. You became a closed circuit. You don't automatically assume others will get you. You don't instinctively reach out when the weight settles. Reaching feels like a risk. So you turn to thought. You analyze. You replay dialogues in your mind, searching for clues. Not for pleasure, but because your inner world had to do the work the outer world left unfinished. They call you perceptive, profound. They don't see the origin of that depth. Countless hours spent processing life alone. You became adept at understanding people. Understanding was your bridge to connection, a way to be close without being vulnerable. You learned the art of listening without agenda, of offering empathy without expecting a return. People feel calm around you. They unfold. They confess. You hold space effortlessly. But when the focus shifts to you, the gears lock. How do you become the messy, complicated center of attention? How do you trust that your hidden self will be treated with care? You don't. So you curate. You share in fragments. You stay poised, not because you're cold, but because you learn that visibility doesn't guarantee a true meeting. Haven't you noticed? You often feel closer to people in your imagination than you do in reality. You comprehend them deeply, but they only see the edited version. That asymmetry is an old, familiar song. It's the melody of being present, yet fundamentally unseen. You don't fight it. You've accepted it. You tell yourself you're just private, just someone who doesn't need much. But in the deep quiet, sometimes a soft ache arises. Not for attention, but for resonance, for the profound relief of your inner life being mirrored in another's consciousness. You've adapted to living without it, but adaptation isn't the same as absence. You built a sanctuary inside yourself, but forgot to leave a door, and these adaptations didn't fade with childhood. They crystallized into your operating system. They shape how you love, how you judge, how you grieve. You don't look to others to mend your emotional fractures. You mend them yourself. That capability looks like power, and it is, but it's also a signal. People who are emotionally held don't operate this way. They don't constantly scan the horizon of connection. They don't armor themselves against misinterpretation. They don't read silence as abandonment. You do, instantly. Not from cynicism, but from a deep, cellular memory of what happens when you hope without a safety net. So you hope in secret. You remain watchful. You remain, in a subtle way, apart. And that distance isn't aloofness. It's recognition. It's the imprint of learning, far too early, how to be your own soul companion. So what kind of mind takes shape under these conditions? As an adult, that early self-containment doesn't vanish. It evolves. You notice your thoughts travel a different path, slower to voice, quicker to perceive. You don't sprint toward intimacy. You don't take emotional availability for granted. Instead, you anticipate the spaces in between. When warmth is offered, a part of you remains vigilant. When someone truly listens, you quietly note the time. You appreciate care, but you don't sink your full weight into it. This isn't fear. It's precision. You learn to calibrate your hopes to avoid a fall. Your caution isn't a wall. It's a language you learn to speak for survival. This is where things are often misread. What looks like emotional reserve isn't coldness. What feels like a step back isn't a lack of want. It's prudence, honed over years. You don't avoid bonds. You approach them with a measured depth. Your thinking embodies this. You don't assume people can meet you where you stand. You survey. You wait. You've become an expert at sensing what's truly on offer without ever asking. You watch for actions over declarations. You trust demonstrated patterns over soothing words. This mindset wasn't born from negativity. It was forged in experience. From learning that emotional anchors can slip away silently. From knowing that expressing need can leave you stranded. So you built an anchor within. You learned how to validate your own feelings. How to untangle complex thoughts in solitude. How to carry burdens without immediately setting them down in someone else's space. To those who trade in constant emotional dialogue, this looks like disconnection, but you're not disconnected. You are profoundly connected to yourself. Here is the psychological core of it all. Sensitive people who navigated childhood emotionally alone often develop a relational framework based on self-witnessing. They become their own reflecting pool. They don't need external validation to know their own truth. They don't crumble when support fades. They adapt. This builds remarkable resilience, but it also complicates closeness. You don't naturally believe someone will cradle your inner world gently. You don't easily surrender to interdependence. Not because you don't crave connection, but because connection once proved unreliable. So, your mind plans ahead. You think in fallback positions, in emotional contingency plans. You always know how you'll manage if you're left to your own devices. That readiness feels like wisdom, but it holds a quiet sorrow. The sorrow of never quite believing someone will stay when the weather turns rough. The sorrow of being so adept at solitude you never asked for. You don't dwell on it. You barely name it. You simply observe that intimacy feels more possible in theory than in fact. That being understood feels safer as an internal concept than an external reality. So you retreat into contemplation instead of stepping forward. You've constructed a vast, intricate inner landscape. It keeps you stable. It makes you insightful. It also, quietly, keeps you separate. You're seldom blindsided by letdowns, rarely devastated by someone's retreat. Your system was conditioned not to place its full weight on another's presence. That conditioning succeeded, but it sculpted your entire approach to intimacy. You don't take it for granted. You don't pursue it desperately. You allow it in, cautiously, and if it recedes, you don't unravel. You'll return home to yourself. That return is a well-worn path. It's comfortable, yet, in still moments, a new kind of awareness can stir. Not a demand, but a wondering. What would it feel like to not preempt emotional absence? To not brace for being overlooked? To not keep a part of yourself in reserve? Always. This question isn't asking for a revolution. It's asking for acknowledgement. The architecture of your mind wasn't random. It was built around a foundational lesson. Emotional presence is not a promise. And now, as an adult, that lesson still directs how you approach others and how much of your true self you let them perceive. You don't have to solve this now. This isn't about repair. It's about seeing the blueprint of your inner world, how it was designed to endure emotional solitude, how it still guards you, and how it silently steers every bond you form. Sit with that recognition. Not to dismantle it, just to finally see how much of your thinking was molded by learning to be emotionally long before you even had the words for what was missing.